If the charging LED bugs you at night when it's on your nightstand, you can turn it off. First, enter the BIOS by powering the deck off, then while holding the volume up button, press the power button and keep holding the volume up button until you hear a chime or until you see the Steam logo. Then, using the D-pad, go into Setup Utility in the bottom right. You can select it using your A button. Then in Advanced, you can go to Power LED and toggle it off. While we're here, if you're interested in undervolting your deck, this is where you would do it. I have a whole guide on exactly how to do that. It can give you better battery life, less fan noise, and sometimes even slightly higher frame rates if you win the Silicon Lottery. I'll leave it linked below. And another thing we can adjust in the BIOS is the UMA buffer size. Without going into crazy detail, the Steam Deck has 16 gigs of memory that are shared between the CPU and GPU, aka RAM and VRAM. And that sharing is done dynamically, and for the most part, it works totally seamlessly. But some games don't play nicely with it, and they run better if you allocate more VRAM. No Man's Sky had the biggest improvement to stuttering I've seen if you increase the UMA buffer size to 4 GB, but God of War and Halo Infinite also showed significant improvements. To do this, again, enter the BIOS, then using the D-pad, go to Setup Utility in the bottom right, then in Advanced, go to UMA frame buffer size and change it to 4 GB. Now, here is a huge caveat. In most games, this will make no difference because the system was already doing this perfectly in the background. In some games, like No Man's Sky, it will improve performance, but in some games that are more RAM hungry, it'll hurt performance. The only one I've personally seen is in Red Dead 2, but just keep that in mind. If a game that you play gets worse performance after changing this setting, just go back into the BIOS and change it back, no big deal. Did you know you can add non-Steam games to your Steam library, and it's actually really easy? Hit the Steam button, then go to Power, then go to Desktop Mode, and once you're in Desktop Mode, open Steam, then in the bottom left, hit Add Game, then add a non-Steam game, then pick whatever games you want. Pro tip here, you can also add non-games, things like Chrome or Firefox, then you can use one of those browsers while you're still in gaming mode. And once you're done, go back to game mode and you're going to see whatever icons you added for your non-Steam games. There you go. Did you know if you hold the Steam button, the right trackpad becomes a mouse? This works system-wide. Lots of games like Cyberpunk have their own separate launcher when you try to play them, and they can be kind of tough to navigate with joysticks, so this is the way I like to do it. The Steam Deck screen is small, and sometimes it's hard to see stuff. Hold Steam and L1 to pull up the magnifier, then move around with the right trackpad. I use it all the time. Oh, and because I get this question on every single video I make, to change your keyboard, go to Settings, Keyboard, then Keyboard Theme. You can also buy more keyboards with Steam points. If there are any tips that you've found useful so far, consider liking and subscribing. It really helps me out. All right, back to it. The deck's joysticks feel kind of unresponsive, and at first I thought they were just low quality joysticks, but they're not. I'm not sure exactly why, but it's actually because the deck's joysticks' dead zones are set way too high out of the box. To change them, go to Settings, Controller, Calibration, and Advanced Settings, and then I personally would recommend changing the dead zones to around 3000. That's what's worked best for me, and they'll feel way more responsive. If you want to go lower, feel free. Just know that if you get some stick drift, aka you're getting an input when you aren't actually moving the joystick, so maybe your character is moving or the camera is panning slightly without you actually touching anything, then just go back into these settings and increase the dead zones a little bit. If you're downloading a big game and the deck keeps going to sleep, which pauses the download, you can go into your power settings and tell it not to go to sleep anymore, but I don't like doing that because then whenever the download is done, I have to remember to go back into settings and change it back. How I personally like to do it is just to switch into desktop mode, then the download can run even when the screen goes to sleep. Pro tip, if you have the Steam Deck OLED, you can get a Decky plugin called Magic Black, which will turn the screen black, which, because it's an OLED screen, is totally off. This won't work with the LCD model because the screen technology works different, but it's great if you have the OLED. And speaking of downloads, if you're doing basically anything online, you should be using a VPN. I use ExpressVPN because if I don't, my ISP or internet service provider can see, log, and sell a record of everything I do to data brokers, and I don't like that. ExpressVPN helps keep my web traffic private as it should be. Another thing I love about ExpressVPN is that I can use it to get shows that aren't available in the US. For example, on Netflix, Lord of the Rings and Interstellar are two of my favorite movies, and they aren't available in the US. But I can use ExpressVPN to set my location to Japan or Argentina, and then I can watch them. It's a super underrated feature of having a VPN. And as you would expect, ExpressVPN works on my Windows PC, MacBook, and phone seamlessly. It also has over 400,000 reviews and a 4.7-star rating on the App Store, which is just another way of saying it's good. It's really, really good. Find out how you can get 4 months for free by scanning the QR code on screen, clicking the link in the description box below, or going to expressvpn.com/Sam.Alexander. And thanks again to ExpressVPN for sponsoring this section of the video. That reminds me, Decky is freaking awesome. If you don't have it, I made a whole video on how to install it and why you want to install it. I'll leave it linked below. Did you know your left trackpad works like an old iPod scroller? And with the vibration feedback, it's actually really satisfying. It took me way longer than I would care to admit to realize this is how the left trackpad is supposed to work. If you want to keep your battery healthy over the long term, go to Settings, Power, then Battery Charge Limit. It defaults to 80%. I changed mine to 90%, which is sort of a middle ground. It's better than nothing, and it doesn't take away quite as much battery life from your overall gaming. If your deck is running hotter than you'd like, or you want the fans to run quieter and you're okay with it being hotter, you can set your own custom fan curves with the Decky plugin Fantastic. Once you add it, it's a little bit unintuitive, at least it was for me. Just tap anywhere and that will add a point, and then if you tap that point, it'll delete it. Just be careful because you can totally create a fan curve that will cook your deck. From a safety point of view, I'd recommend setting at least 1 point right before 100 degrees to ramp the fans to 100. That way, no matter what the rest of the curve is, when the chip gets really hot, the fans will kick on. To quickly adjust brightness, hold the 3 dots or the Steam button, then move the left stick up or down. If you're having a hard time using the controls in a game, especially a PC game that's not supposed to be played on the Steam Deck, before you go through all the trouble of making your own custom controller layout, try checking out the community-made controller layout. To get there, hit the Steam button, then controller, then community layouts, and usually the top ones are really good. I personally use the upvotes as a guide to how good the controller layout is going to be, and then proceed accordingly. If you're trying to stretch your battery life, here are a few good options. First, if the game allows for it, turn off Wi-Fi and Bluetooth, and turn off Game Rumble and Steam Haptics. Those settings alone can save you around 3 watts. After that, if you lock the frame rate to something like 30 or 45, depending on the game, that can also dramatically increase your battery life. If you're on the Steam Deck LCD, the sweet spot is 40 FPS, and if you're on the Steam Deck OLED, the sweet spot is 45 FPS. Due to the OLED's 90 Hz refresh rate, 45 gives you a perfect frame doubling to that 90 Hz.